All right, Team ET, today we have an extremely special guest, and I'm very excited to introduce you to none other than Chester Elton. Chester, welcome to the ET project. I'm extremely excited about the conversation we're about to have.
Oh, man, listen, thanks for the invitation. I know it's going to be a lot of fun because you're here.
I like you very much already. Thank you. All right. So typically, I would start by asking if you have any fun facts that you would like to share with our listeners.
Yeah, well, you and I were talking before we hit record. We just had our annual family reunion with our kids, and it was just great fun. We've got a little lake house in upstate New York in this beautiful Adirondack Park. And it was just so much fun. We've got 4 kids and 3 grandkids. Everybody was there. We took the obligatory family photos and jumped in the lake. And, it just really, I was, talking with my wife this morning. It just really brings home the importance of family and surrounding yourself with the people that you love and not taking them for granted. You know, one of the books we wrote recently is called Leading with Gratitude. And my wife and I have a wonderful tradition at the end of the day. We ask each other, what are 3 things you're grateful for today?
Mm.
And of course, the week that we were up at the lake house, we had many more than 3 things to be grateful for. So that is just a really a fun fact. And this month we'll be happily married and still madly in love for 39 years. So it's my 39-year wedding anniversary this month.
Unbelievable. Congratulations. And it sounds like you've picked up a little bit of a cold.
Yeah, well, when you got 3 little kids, they're sort of like carriers, little petri dishes. So yeah, I'm feeling a lot better today than I did yesterday. So your timing for recording this podcast was good, Wayne.
Excellent. And unfortunately, we're doing audio only, and I would love the listeners to be able to see your fantastic, brightly coloured orange shirt. It's I very much love the whole carrot principle and the trademark that you and Adrian have established. It's incredible. Anything around the world at the moment exciting you, whether it be business related or
Yeah,
anything?
I'll tell you what I find really interesting right now, Wayne, is that business is so much in transition. I have a son that works at American Express, for example. He works in analytics for them
Mm,
with their engagement surveys and so on. And, people still trying to figure out how much time do I have to spend in the office? How much time can I work from home? How do I do that family work life harmony, balance, integration, whatever you want to call it? Um, he went into work today, for example. Today is one of the days he goes in. I think he goes in Tuesdays and Thursdays.
mm,
And while it's kind of nice to be able to work from home, I find that, it's just good to be around people too, that we are community animals
yes.
and the opportunity to be around other people. Now, the problem is he'll go in and he doesn't know how many people are going to be there. I mean, the floor he works on probably holds 400 people. And he says, Dad, I'm lucky if there's 30 people there sometimes. So I find it fascinating as we start to, morph into what does work look like?
Mm,
I have another son lives down in Dallas, Texas. He works for Goldman Sachs. Everybody's in every day. So their, mandate is we work live in person in the office.
mhm.
So that's what's really fascinating me right now is how do we figure this out? And then on top of all of that, Adrian Gostick, who's my co-author, we're speaking more than ever now. I think there's a lot of pent up demand for people to meet in person.
Yes.
So you layer over that the fact that the airlines haven't figured out how to get back up and running. It's rare that you take off and land on time. And so trying to figure out, travel schedules. And I think of business people that are trying to get to and from clients and consulting companies. So there's still a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of, figuring this out, and every
Mm.
company's a little differently. So that for me right now is really fascinating. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that all kind of fleshes out.
Do you have a personal opinion about what it will look like in 12 months from now?
I really don't, because every industry, every organization is different. I've got a tech company, for example.
Mm,
And we'll talk about this, I'm sure, generationally. It's interesting as well, you know, that they're saying, hey, right before the pandemic, we spent all this money on this beautiful new headquarters, and we want people in it. You know, you might get, it's like you buy a brand new car and you never get to drive it, you know.
Yes.
Uh, and yet, you know, the HR folks and the analytics say, yeah, but we had our best year ever, like with everybody staying home. So why will you mess with that?
Mm.
So it's I think, you know, each company is going to have to look at their culture and say, what do our people need?
Mm-hmm.
What do our customers need? And then what do we want on top of that? So I think everybody's going to have their own journey. And of course, you know, there are some you know, industries you have to show up. If you're in manufacturing, you can't do that from home, right?
Right.
If you're in the restaurant business and you have a restaurant, people have to show up at the restaurant, you know,
Mm.
hotels and so on. So every company, every culture is going to have their nuances, and that's where I think it becomes really important for leaders to really listen. You know, listen to your customers, listen to your people, listen to your communities, and make good choices.
And there's a lot of uncertainty around that situation at the moment, which is a lead into the book, and we'll come to that very soon. Before we do, I would love to get a little insight to part of your career journey. I mean, on paper, it's a fantastic journey. I'm sure you've had your ups and downs like everybody. But from our listeners' perspective, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to share some of the highlights or anything that stands out for you in your journey so far. And it's only just starting, I believe.
Yeah. We're only, you know, we're only 25 years in.
Yes.
So, you know, I grew up in sales. I grew up in a ridiculously happy family, by the way. I have four older brothers and two amazing parents. And my dad was in broadcasting, and he always said, look, nothing happens till somebody sells somebody something. You know, get into sales, because salespeople understand the marketing, they understand products, they understand customers. You know, they're where the rubber hits the road.
Mm.
So I grew up in sales, and I loved selling. I sold media time in Detroit and New York. Had an opportunity to then change careers and go into selling for a recognition company called OC Tanner. And that's where I got into, you know, employee engagement and recognition and so on. And I loved it. You know, it was making a difference. Well, I loved selling media time. It was hard for me to connect the dots how selling a commercial in Columbus, Ohio was making the world a better place, right? Recognizing employees for their longevity, their achievements, their patents, and so on. That really resonated with me. Well, as we started to get into it more and more, I had a project with a consulting company, and I wanted to learn more about their company. And he said, look, you want to learn what we're doing? Read this book. It's written by our senior VP of HR, and it was called The Employee. So funny, you think I'd remember this, but it was the employee, the talent equation, something like that. And he overnighted it to me. And I thought, this is brilliant. Your whole philosophy encapsulated in this book, and positioned them as the thought leaders. And so I called our CEO and I said, hey, this is a really good idea. We should write the definitive book on employee recognition. We'll be the thought leaders. I won't have to cold call. People will call me looking for my advice because we're the thought leaders. And it was so interesting. His name's Kent Murdoch. He says, ooh, I love that idea. Go ahead, write the book. And at that moment, Wayne, it was like, I don't think you heard me. It was like, you should write the book and I would benefit from said book, right? and that's when he said, you know what, you're a smart guy, figure it out. Isn't that a wonderful challenge? And so, you know, for like a year, I played with ideas and chapters and so on. My wife even kind of jumped in. And then he called me back and he said, you know, I've been thinking about that book idea. I hired a writer. I know you're not a writer. You're a salesperson. I've hired a writer. His name's Adrian Gostick. Introduce yourself and write the book. Well, Adrian was born in England, but grew up in Canada. I grew up in Canada. We had that hockey thing, you know, in common.
Mm.
And a year after we met, we dropped a book on Kent's desk called Managing with Carrots. And Kent said, I love being king. You say stuff and it happens, you know, which is great. Well, you know, we sold 30,000 copies. It's a lot of books.
For sure.
And and that's and then we were off. You know, as you know now, we've written 14 books together. We've sold 1.6 million copies. They're in 30 languages. We've spoken, I think, in 50 different countries around the world on employee engagement and culture and leadership. And to the point of back to the carrot principle and managing with carrots and so on. What was really gratifying is the common thread that we found throughout all those areas of great cultures, leaders, and teams was gratitude. And of course, our mascot is the carrot, right? So I wear orange every day. You know, it's the brand, and so that's the journey. Now, to your point, the ups and downs. It sounds, you know, like a fairy tale. Oh, you know, challenge, write a book, sells a lot. You know, it as you well know, no one is an overnight success. You know, it was 30 years in the making, right? And learning how to write and how to get a book published and pitch the book and sell those books and speaking and so on has been a wonderful, arduous, hard, you know, journey. You know, you'd have occasions where you knock it out of the park, and you have occasions where you know, we missed the boat on that one. You know, we didn't pay attention. So I appreciate the question. It's a longer answer than I was planning on. That's the journey, and I'm sure executives can relate to that. That it's you try it, what works, jump on that, continually try to reinvent yourself, and of course, 14 books, 14 different ideas on, you know, where are we going, what's important, what do people need. And,
we could throw the rest of the questions out and just keep talking about that topic. I love it. So we won't though. We'll keep proceeding. But it's a nice segue anyway into the discussion around the book. Before I dive directly onto the book itself, when I look across the general theme of the books, the 14 books, for me it looks like there is a central theme, and it's around leadership, establishing a culture to understand and respect people. Now, I don't know if that's correct or not, and I would love to be corrected if it's not, but that was one of the strong messages that comes out to me, at least. How accurate is that?
yeah, you know, I think it's spot on, Wayne. I really do. You know, it's so interesting how the dynamic of leadership has changed. You know, Adrian and I talk often, and we say, gosh, if you'd asked us 5 years ago, what are the attributes of a great leader? You know, we would have said, look, great communicator, paint the vision, get people to follow, you know, and on and on. Now, particularly highlighted by the pandemic, as so many things have been,
Yes,
is that if you don't have empathy as a leader, if you can't lead with empathy, if you can't lead with gratitude, none of those other things matter. You know, your people have to believe and know in their core that you care about them. You care about them. You care about their families. You care about their careers. And I know that's hard to do when you've got big organizations and you've got pressures from the market and so on, and, you know, supply chain. And there are times when, you know, the mandate is that 10% cut across the board or a 20% cut across the board. The thing is as we've looked at organizations that have gone through hard times in particular, that when they have the trust and the faith of their people, you can navigate that much better. You know, you can really navigate that much better and have a clear vision. And people appreciate that there are tough calls. And sometimes their careers are part of that tough call. You know, empathy, I think you're spot on. If I care about you, not just as a worker bee, you know, I'll never forget, we were at a conference presenting, and the question went out is, what do you expect from your leader? Isn't that interesting? What do you expect from your leader? And the comment that really has always stuck with me is one that said, I don't want my leader to just make me a more efficient worker, a better worker. I want my leader to help me become a better person. Well, that's a huge shift from when, you know, you and I got our first jobs. You know, it was, how do we please the boss?
Yes.
How do we please the customers? The customer is always right. Right. And now it's, maybe the customer isn't always right. In fact, often the customer isn't right. Are we going to defend our people? Are we going to defend our brand? Are we going to make the right choice for the culture, for the brand, instead of tipping everything upside down because we've got a customer that wants something outrageous.
Yeah.
So that empathy piece and the listening piece has become really, really important.
Very nice. Well, let's jump into the book itself. It's not a new book. It came out around May of last year, I believe, 2021, called Anxiety at Work. And the book covers 8 strategies about helping build resilience, handling uncertainty, and I'm quoting from the book now. So how to build resilience, handle uncertainty, and get things done. You mentioned in the book anxiety and the whole topic around employee mental health. And one of the quotes you mentioned is that leaders need to take employee well-being as serious as their bottom line results. And I love that statement, because I think that's really at the core of where we are in this world at the moment.
Yeah. Well, you need to take it seriously because it does impact your bottom line, right? Turnover, engagement, productivity, innovation all comes back to having highly engaged employees. Well, how can you be highly engaged if you're worrying about mental health? We start the book, and we don't talk about it often when we do podcasts, and I think it's an important element, is we debunk a bunch of myths around anxiety.
Yes.
And that's important. There are generational differences. My generation, look, when we played sports and somebody got knocked out, we all laughed. We gave them some smelling salts and sent them back in, rub some dirt on it, suck it up, turn that frown upside down. I'll tell you what, cheer up, try that, and it was very, very much misunderstood. Right.
Yes.
And now with so much more information and so much better education, we can debunk those and say, you know what, this isn't something that you can just say, stiff upper lip, just march out there and get it done. There were a lot of things going on. And generationally, I'll tell you, if you look at the cover of the book, it's the only book where we have 3 authors. It's always been Gostick and Elton. Now it's Gostick and Elton and Gostick. Anthony Gostick, Adrian's son, really pushed us to write the book. He said, you guys talk about culture all the time. Do you ever talk about mental health? And we said, oh, no. Are you kidding? Not us. We're not going to touch that third rail. That's death on the tracks. And he said, you oldies never talk about it. He goes, my generation, we start every conversation with, how are you doing? How are you holding up?
Wow.
And the numbers bore it out. It's so interesting. Pre-pandemic, 19% of people said they suffered from an anxiety disorder. So 1 in 5. You get, end of 2021, middle of 20, and it's 30%. That's a pretty big jump. Now that's everybody. You look at millennials or workers in their 20s is what we parsed out. It was 42%. You're getting close to half your young workers are suffering from some kind of anxiety disorder. Now, everybody gets anxious, right? And sometimes it's a good thing. It gives you the impetus to get up and get going. A disorder is when it's that persistent worry that keeps you from doing your job. So you're looking at 42%. Well, as you dig deeper and you talk about your bottom line, 50% of millennials and 75% of Gen Z, or Gen Z, as you'd say, have quit a job because of mental health reasons. And by the way, why do they quit? Because only 1 in 10 employees feel safe talking about it in the workplace. You think about it, 90% of your employees that are suffering won't talk to their manager or supervisor. And why do you think that is, Wayne? Why don't they talk about it?
Well, I'm guessing it's stigma. It's fear of consequence.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be seen as weak, can't handle the pressure, not going to get a promotion, not going to get a raise, not going to get that plum assignment. And so that fear drives them deeper into, I can't talk about it. I can't share it with anybody. So better for me to just quit, take some time off, go find another job. And that's very sad, I think, when there's that much lack of trust in the workplace.
It is, for sure. The first strategy you talk about in the book is around uncertainty and dealing with uncertainty, and how uncertainty is one of the, I would say, the prime triggers for anxiety. You've mentioned the statistics, but you also give a number of actions that leaders can take in addressing this uncertainty. Yeah, there's 6 in total in the book, but are there any that stand out for you in today's environment where we are at the moment?
Oh, absolutely. Look, uncertainty is the number one driver of anxiety. It's why it's strategy number one, right?
Yes.
Very few people get to the end of the book, so you put the good stuff up front. So that idea of uncertainty. We talk to leaders about saying, look, annual reviews are going the way of the dodo bird, right? It's check-ins become really important, and checking in often. So communication needs to skyrocket. Even if you don't know, you need to tell people what you don't know. Because when there's a gap in communication, those gaps get filled with rumor, innuendo, and fear. And none of those are positive, and none of those are productive. Mm. So we really encourage leaders to say, look, your employees in times of uncertainty need certain questions answered on a regular basis, not just at the beginning and the end of the year. It's, how are we doing? In other words, how's the company doing? I love town hall meetings that are held on a regular basis. American Express, by the way, is a great example of a company that is wonderful at communicating to the masses and to the one. Their CEO has regular town hall meetings, lays out the numbers. Here's how we're doing. Here are the issues. Here's how we're addressing it. Here's where the market is. Here's how we are in relation to the market. And right down to, here's how it's going to impact our health plans, our bonus structures, our growth strategies. I mean, it's fabulous. And then he opens it up 2 questions. And he says, I love this. Here's my cell phone number. Text me. Call me. I mean, there's 40,000 employees at American Express. Mm. Now, because he's so open and honest and transparent about it, he doesn't get deluged. Because why? He's answered most of their questions. So how are we doing? Right? Where are we going? And then really important, how am I doing? And what does my future look like here? It's so interesting that millennials in particular, younger workers that are coming, now quite established actually in the workforce, they don't like to be micromanaged in their work. They love to be micromanaged in their careers.
Okay.
How am I doing? Where am I going? What's my next step? So answering those questions, how are we doing? Where are we going as an organization? How am I doing? And what's my future look like here? Boy, you answer those 4 questions, anxiety comes down real fast, because that takes a lot of uncertainty around our company, the industry, the market, and then me personally, our team, and where am I headed? Does that make sense to you?
I love that. I'm going to try that tomorrow with my team.
Excellent.
I have a large percentage of millennials and Gen Zs. Another couple of strategies that stand out, and unfortunately we're not going to get through them all, but another one is around perfectionism and the unhealthiness of being a perfectionist in particular. For me, this resonated very loudly, because that's one of my sins during my own career. How do you overcome this as a leader, particularly when you have pressures from your own bosses that expect nothing but the absolute best?
Every time, yeah. It's so funny. I remember in university, we would do the mock interviews as you'd get to be a senior, and you're internships and looking for jobs and so on. And there was the classic question back then. So what is your biggest flaw? And of course the answer was, I just work too hard. I'm just a perfectionist. I refuse to fail. All these canned questions, right? And of course it's so unhealthy, because no one can be perfect on everything. And unfortunately, with the advent of our digital lives, that, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn, wherever you go, that everything has to look great all the time.
Mm.
Our children are all exceptional. I speak 5 languages. Every holiday I take is just off the chart. I mean, magazine, vacation magazine material, right? And of course, it's not true.
Yes,
it's not true. And so again, back to the leaders, you've got to take your people and be very specific on what level of good do you need.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes just good is good enough. We tell the story of Anthony
Yes.
in the book, where he's a super smart kid, and I've known Anthony since he's 6 years old. Struggled with anxiety his whole life. We have a child that have struggled with it as well. So not only was this an important book for us to write as far as culture and business, very personal for both Adrian and I.
Mm.
And very interesting that he was given an assignment. He works in a lab with DNA and genome and all this super smart stuff that Adrian and I can't spell, let alone pronounce. And his assignment was take these 10-year-old DNA samples and extract the DNA. And he goes, oh, okay. And gave it to him over the weekend. Well, he's only getting like 7 out of 10. And he's freaking out, right? And he keeps doing it over and over and over again. Well, Monday comes and he's not sleeping, he's not eating, and he's got to tell the head of the lab that I can only get 7 out of 10. Well, the head of the lab says, 7 out of 10, that's great. These are 10-year-old samples. And he goes, why wouldn't you tell me that? Why wouldn't you say, by the way, these are 10-year-old samples. You get 6 or 7 out of and you're killing it, right? Because without that information, he's just going to do it over and over and over again. Mm. So, sometimes you just say, look, I don't need a 90-slide PowerPoint with animation and video. I need a 1-page, 6-bullet point document. That's all I need. Don't get crazy. Now, if it's $1 billion deal, yeah, we're gonna hunker down and make sure that every piece of information is researched and backed up, and everybody's presentation. So that again is the communication piece. Mm. How good does it need to be? Because sometimes just good is good enough, and again, that lowers anxiety. I'm informed. I feel good, and we're headed in the right direction.
So the clarification within the communication needs to be there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, perfect. I've bundled 2 together here. I got a little bit greedy, but I figured they go very nicely together. One was talking about marginal groups, and the other was talking about inclusive work cultures. And so, again, this is a very topical discussion piece at the moment. With we're all talking about diversity, inclusion, equity. It's the right topic. As a leader, is there anything that stands out that we need to be really cognizant of and make sure that we pay attention to when it comes to that topic?
Absolutely. I think, we've all had the experience of being the other. Mm. I mean, if you've ever been in junior high school, at a dance, we all get that there's that anxiety that I don't fit in. Right. Now, imagine feeling like that all the time. You're maybe the only woman on the team. You're maybe the only person on the team who English is your second language. Mm. Right. You may be the only Muslim on the team that's got to figure out where to go to pray, during the day. Dietary restrictions, on and on and on. Right. The thing that leaders just need to be aware of, and again, this comes back to leading with empathy, is that you need to lead by example. You need to make sure that people feel included. I've got a wonderful leader. Adrian and I do a lot of executive coaching these days. A credit union in Seattle. And when it came to DE&I, and I know there's a lot of different acronyms you can use for inclusion these days, to lead out, to show up to those groups and say, hey, you've got my support. I may not know exactly what you're going through. I can relate to what it feels like. And that's really an important, way to phrase it. I know what it feels like to not feel included, to feel like an other. And I want to make sure that you don't feel excluded. So we talk about it in the book about those social connections, which become really important. You know, I remember being in an organization, and because I don't drink or smoke, early days in my career, there were lots of stuff after hours that I just didn't get invited to. Well, you can go to a bar and have a Coke. You know, you don't have to knock back the shots. And it was really interesting that it wore on me after a while. I go, well, how come I'm not? You guys are talking about all this stuff you're doing and hanging out, and of course you get business done in bars, you get business done on golf courses and so on. And if you're never invited, there's part of you that feels like, am I not good enough? Is it my personal hygiene? You know, what is it? So, leading out and creating those opportunities that say, hey, look, we're going to make sure that everybody feels comfortable, and lead out with that. The other thing about inclusion and community is you've got to be able to talk about stuff. And are you making it safe to talk about your life? Particularly now that you've got hybrid, you've got in person, you've got working at home. You know, sometimes all you're going to see is the 2x3 screen, little box. And so again, checking in. And it's really interesting. You never want to say as a leader, I get the feeling you're really anxious. Because that just, oh, no, not me, boss, I'm good. The language that you should use as a leader is, I've noticed. And it's just a very easy way to enter it. You know what, Wayne? I've noticed that for somebody who's never, ever late, you're starting to show up a little late. For somebody who never misses a deadline, you're starting to, what do you need? You know, how can I help? And it's always on the business side because you're the business leader. Hey, I've just noticed. What do you need? How can I help? Well, when you say I've noticed, that gets translated to I care. Oh, you've noticed. Oh, you do care. You know what? I got to tell you, boss, these deadlines are just ridiculous. I don't have the resources I need. I'll tell you what, if we could push that out a little bit, or I could get a little more resources, now we're talking. Now it's safe. So the idea of I've noticed and we've got a community, really, really helpful. And if you tune into that as a leader, and I hope a couple of those tips help. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the whole psychological safety discussion as well that factors in here.
It is. We like to raise the bar a little bit on that way. And I'm a big fan of psychological safety. My voice is heard. My opinion matters. I think emotional safety is the new standard.
Okay.
And is it emotionally safe for me to talk about the fact that I'm really worried about my mom and dad? You know, they're isolating over and over again. I'm worried about my kids. They've lost a year at school. They still don't feel safe. They're getting bullied, whatever as you know, I mean, addiction is up, self-harm is up, abuse is up. You know, those things are real, and they're real for, look, my dad used to say, everybody's got something, Jess. Everybody's got something. Everybody's worried about somebody, you know? And so, you know, his phrase was, be good to everybody. Everybody's having a tough day. Yeah. And I think if that's your mentality going in,
yeah, very nice.
It's very helpful.
I'm going to ask you in a moment for some key takeaways, but is there anything that you would love to touch on in relation to anxiety at work, the book, that we haven't spoken about that's very dear to you that you would like to mention?
Thank you for that question, Wayne, because, you know, I mentioned earlier that the common thread that we saw through everything was gratitude. And it's so interesting to us that as we took a deep dive and we talked to a lot of counselors, we talked to a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists, that, you know, as humans, we can't hold two emotions at the same time. You can't be happy and sad. You know, you can't be anxious and grateful. So I'm a big fan of rituals. And what are some of your gratitude rituals? You know, I mentioned one that my wife and I have. What are your three things at the end of the day? I have a tradition. I carry a little gratitude stone with me. I know this is just audio, but, you know, I keep it at my desk. I put them in my pocket just as a reminder that there's always something to be grateful for. And I have a tradition that I actually pass these little stones to people whether it's the flight attendant that's done a great job, or whoever it is at the grocery store that's checking out a million people and trying to, make ends meet. Simple acts of random kindness, and that, those traditions and rituals of gratitude, I think, are so important. Whether you meditate or you pray or you read your scriptures or you've got positive affirmations. I developed a wonderful mantra from reading a wonderful book called Think Like a Monk. I love that book. Yes. And he challenges everybody to what is your mantra? And so my morning mantra is be kind, be grateful, and be of service. And I think that those all help tamp down anxiety. And over and above all of that, who do you have that you can talk to? I am blessed with an amazing wife. Just this morning, we were both going through a bunch of stuff, and just being able to sit down and share your day. What's coming up? What have you been through? How's your cold? Are you exercising? Are you eating? Let's talk about the kids. I think the biggest message when it comes to anxiety that leaders can message, and that you can message to your family and friends, is that they're not alone, that there's always somebody to talk to. And boy, having gratitude rituals, whatever your personal health are, going for walks, exercising, meditating, prayers, whatever it might be. And then remembering that you're not alone, that you've got somebody to talk to. If those are your only takeaways, boy, I think those are huge.
Fantastic. I've taken the 3 blessing gratitude approach from Martin Seligman, so very similar to what you're talking about. So, yeah, very nice.
There's a lot of ways to do it. Find what works for you, and stick to it. And the more you do it, the more it becomes who you are. And I think that's the lovely part.
Excellent. Our time is almost up, or probably already up, but the conversation's so engaging, I'm reluctant to finish. But anything you're working on at the moment that we should know about? I'm sure there's a book somewhere.
Oh yeah, there's always another book, and thanks for asking. I don't know that we'll get it out. It's a bit of a labor of love for me, and we'll figure out something. We're actually working on a gratitude journal, which I think will be great fun. You've probably picked up, I'm a big fan of rituals. I need to go for my walk every day. I need to say my prayers every day. I need to read some positive things, and keep on track that way. And the idea behind our gratitude journal is to have something to make you think and put you in that, mode of gratitude. And then just daily challenges. What are you doing today to keep yourself on track? And at the end, start your day with gratitude. Reflect on gratitude at some point, and end your day with just writing down. I'm a big fan of journals and being reflective. I have over 40 journals now in my collection. I don't know that my kids will ever read them. I do tell them that I do put money inside the pages every now and again. So you should go on the treasure hunt at some point. So, to me, that's kind of important. And if we can create a vehicle, a journal that helps people in the ritual of staying mentally healthy and in a grateful state, I think that would be a good contribution.
Yeah. Chester, where would people go to find you? I know there's a million different sites, but which is the best location to head?
Yeah, thecultureworks.com. The Culture Works is our website where you can find everything about our books, our speaking, our coaching, our training. And follow me on LinkedIn. Every 2 weeks we publish a wonderful newsletter called the Gratitude Journal. We've been picked up actually a half a dozen times now as the idea of the day on LinkedIn. So we're very proud of that. It's free. We have over 130,000 subscribers now, and we're constantly publishing ideas and we share, our books, our friends' books, ideas, places you can go for resources. So thecultureworks.com and LinkedIn. two good places to find us.
All right, we'll link to those in our show notes, but I'm sure most people know where to find you already. But excellent. Sorry, please.
Oh, one last thing, and I would be remiss because we're talking about anxiety at work.
Yes.
We also have a wonderful podcast.
Yes.
Anxiety at work. We bring in wonderful experts, leaders and so on that talk about how they've dealt with their personal anxiety and their rituals. So that I can't believe we didn't lead with that. The podcast Anxiety at Work is going to be a great tool for you.
And it's available through Audible as well as all the podcast platforms, I'm sure. So very great. Final question, takeaways. What would you like to leave? Final words of wisdom, perhaps.
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate, words of wisdom from my father. He had a huge impact on me. My dad was my best friend and my first manager and my biggest cheerleader. And I just loved his attitude. You always felt better about yourself after you'd spent some time with my dad. And it was a wonderful gift that he had. And that saying of be good to everybody, everybody's having a tough day, I think is a wonderful way to end the podcast. Just be aware that, people are struggling out there and they may look great on their Instagram and they may look great on their Facebook page. Everybody's got something. Be kind, be grateful and be of service. How can I help? I think is a great question. How can I help? And when you're serving other people and you're not focused on all your woes, because I know you got them, it does lighten the load and it makes everybody's day a little better. So be good to everybody. Everybody's having a tough day.
Chester Elton, I have nothing more humbling to add than that. So I will finish there, but thank you very much for the opportunity to have the conversation. It's been an enormous privilege, and I very much look forward to following you. And I already subscribe to your gratitude journal, by the way. I enjoy it greatly. But thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to one day we may do it again, I hope.
Oh, absolutely. Call me anytime. Wayne, it's been a delight. Thank you for the platform, and thank you for getting the message out on how to deal with anxiety at work.
Thank you.